political and social values, and was surrounded by art and handmade objects from an early age. Her father was a great influence in her early years, resulting in a profound interest in construction and industry. Family vacations inevitably included tours of manufacturing plants, pulp mills, metal fabricators, and artisan studios. She lived for 32 years in the shadow of a now disused molten factory located along the central waterfront in Toronto. In the early years, she loved the distant sound of compressors and the sweet, sour, malty smell drifting through her open windows on a hot summer's night. Now considered an eyesore by many, Vicki delights in the interplay of light and shadow on its scarred surface. The majestic retired fortress of food, the molten factory, reminds us that the communities along the shores of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River have their roots in the shipping of the natural resources that continue to sustain us. Vicki is a trained graphic designer and photographer with a working background in custom fabrication for television, film, and display. Recent exhibitions include work from her project, Trading Places, and they have been presented in public museums and cultural institutions from St. John to Mississauga. Her work is generously supported with grants from the Luminous Endowment Fund and the Ontario Art Council and the Toronto Arts Council. Please give Vicki a warm Shellback welcome.
Hi there. Thanks for coming out. I'm glad it didn't snow.
Not yet.
So my project, Trading Places, is about heavy industry trading places with places of recreation and residences along the shores of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River. What you're looking at in this first title slide is clockwise from top left. We're looking at Oshawa Harbor, the St. Mary's River, Hamilton, with Mordor in the background, and of course Toronto. So since 2011, I've been traveling aboard ships. There I am, hamming it up in the St. Lawrence. Typically, when you guys are thinking about going down south and having a pina colada on the beach and chartering your sailboats, I'm like, okay, when's it going to get cold? I want to get out there. So I wrangled my first trip aboard a ship in 2011, originally to just look at the Collingwood-built ships, the ones that were disappearing from the landscape, trying to get aboard, capturing their history. And I recognized there was a much different story, or larger story to be told, the story about our merchant marine that really nobody knows about. So, as I travel aboard these bulkers, not container ships, but our lakers, I became very interested in the bulk commodities that sustain us on a daily basis. Wheat, the bread we eat, or the cars we drive. Gypsum, the walls that surround our lives. Salt, cement, the glue of our cities. And titanium. And these are just some of the bulk commodities that are shipped along the St. Lawrence Seaway in the Great Lakes. To put this in perspective, this is a screenshot that I grabbed off the internet on December 5th. All of those green dots are bulkers, the red ones are tankers, and only above Montreal do we get container ships because, of course, the seaway is too small, the Welland Canal off. Just a sec, my contact lens popped. All right. So these are all bulkers and tankers. So as I'm traveling along the waterways, I became more and more aware of residential use butting up against heavy industry. So here's a classic example. We've got an aggregate company with absolutely no dust mediation, right next to newly built retirement homes. You know, it struck me as funny, who's going to win that contest? Here we've got the anchorage outside the Port of Montreal. We've got the old marine industry supply chain on the right side, and on the left we've now got monster homes. Again, who's going to win that over? This is Sydney, Nova Scotia. We've got coal steaming off in North Sydney. How long, with gentrification even encroaching in Sydney, is this going to be able to last? And here we've got the Port of Oshawa. Most of us never think of Oshawa as being a busy port, but it is. It's supporting all of that road construction, new infrastructure in Durham region. And so what's happening is the communities there want increased access to their harbor. Redpath Sugar is very interesting, and of course they've been very successful in maintaining its place in the landscape, but it is itself a daily process, and that's why we've got Sugar Beach. And that's why they're supporting so much of our cultural endeavors in the downtown core, because they want to stay there. So where some people are absolutely fascinated when the sugar ships are coming in, other people don't like the noise, they don't like the dust, they don't like the smell. Hamilton Harbor is really interesting. I've been in and out of there quite a lot since 2011, and I'm seeing very significant changes. That port is the busiest Canadian port on the Great Lakes, and they have just received an enormous amount of money from the federal government to expand, and they are spending a lot of time doing lots of thoughtful things around dust and noise and being much better community partners. So, to give us a graphic example of why it is that I'm particularly interested in this whole idea of shipping, this is an illustration of one shipload of iron ore, which represents approximately 900 trucks idling nose to nose on the 403 from the center of Hamilton down to Burlington Pier. That's one shipload of iron ore. So, in my view, we really want to think about how it is that we look at urban planning and keep heavy industry in its traditional place along our shorelines. This is the Algoma Enterprise. It's a newly built, China-built ship. And it's got a very snub-nosed bow, and it's great for taking great pictures. However, it was only blowing about 20 knots. This one, however, is an old Collingwood-built ship, the Montreal on Lake Erie, and that was a 60-knot blow. So, quite an illustration in ship design. Burlington Pier, what it looks like when you're on a ship coming in. So this is the view from the deck of the ship in Hamilton. It's continually fascinating. It's Mordor. It's absolutely compelling. I could spend days just watching the flames. This is iron ore in the hold of a ship. What happens is they'll lower the bulk loaders in and sweep up what they can't scoop out. And then, while underway, they'll hose the ship's out. Now, this was a revelation to me. that the same ships that are carrying iron ore head up the lakes empty to pick up a load of grain. And I found out subsequent to this that iron ore dust or tailings is actually the food grade additive in our cereals.
Iron fortified.
Iron fortified, yeah. Intentionally. Yes. Yes. View of the Welland Canal. The view on a ship while transiting the Welland Canal. And I was very lucky. This is my first trip, and this was before the automatic hydraulic bumpers, and I actually got to work the wire winches. Yeah, so these are the wire winches that would attach, and for those of us who've been through the Welland Canal, you can understand how that works. Heavy industry disappearing into the landscape. This is a gantry at J.J. Fox along the waterway. A view of one of the older Welland canals. This is the Detroit River with one of the older classic lakers still in service. This is the Sioux Locks. This was at the opening of the 2013 season, I believe. And had I realized what happens in the US, the opening of the Sioux Locks is a major, major endeavor. And people line up and cheer and wave, and you feel like a celebrity as you're coming through. And I just spent so much time enjoying the scene that I did regret that I didn't take pictures of the people ashore, jumping up and down with delight. So again, this is the Montrealais, which you can see here how low her freeboard is. She's now retired. She was the last of the Canadian steam-powered ships, actually. And you can see the rivets there for construction. This is Whitefish Bay, where we were anchored awaiting the start of the convoy into Lake Superior. So what happens is at the start of the season, the American Coast Guard comes out and clears a path, which we're following through, except our ship's captain is looking rather concerned because we're stuck in the ice. And at that point, I was the happiest gal on ship because I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. This is Thunder Bay. I'm the photographer. I'm a fine art photographer. So what my task is to show the public through an artist's eye what I'm seeing. This is Richardson Granary. So this is the same Richardson family. That's Richardson Green Shields. They're a powerhouse in the West. Yes, basically. Yes.
And they're good sailors.
This is the loading of wheat. They use trimmers in Thunder Bay, which is a father and son union that come out and they actually are responsible for loading and trimming the ships appropriately. And this particular load of wheat was actually destined for the Queen of England's bakery. Richardson's does a special combination of wheat for them. Another view. It seems like all the loading and discharge of cargo happens at night, usually the early morning hours when you want to be asleep. Another view. And of course, silos. Thunder Bay is the city of silos. So while I was there, I knocked on Richardson's door and they let me in. Their granary is well over 100 years old and is still, operating much the same way, except with computerized inventory. Conveyors everywhere. And so this is just another view of the low freeboard of the Montreal. You wouldn't see that anymore on any of these newer ships. Notice the canvas. So I'm always fascinated by infrastructure. I'm interested in the juxtaposition of different modes of transportation. And of course, this is Montreal, where rail, road, and the sea meet. This is G3 in Montreal. This is another method of loading and discharging of cargo. They have an interior conveyor belt where these buckets are constantly rotating through. And again, here they're lowering payloaders into the hold. This is Port Cartier. Port Cartier is very interesting. It is a tiny little harbor that has an anchorage outside and is serviced by tugboats. It's ArcelorMittal's harbor, and they have 2 tugboats that bring in the ships. The captains are considered some of the best in the world. You can see how incredibly tiny it is. On the right side, we've got the Albo Lake, which is an old Canadian laker, and on the other side, we've got Panamax ships, so you can see the relative size. This is the iron ore mine in Fairmont, Quebec. So I was very fortunate that in 2015, ArcelorMittal opened up their doors to me and very generously lent the time of their folks to guide me around. This is the minefield as it's prepared to be detonated later in the day. A view of the mine. Yeah, we do similar kind of work. So this mine operates 364 days a year, and they line their roadways with tires. Each one of these cast-off tires was $60,000 new. So it gives you an idea of the incredible amount of money that it takes to bring us these very simple bulk commodities. Snow tires.
Oh my God.
The gravel on the roads are between 4 and 6 inches in diameter. Me handing it up because I can. This is the concentrator plant in Fairmont, and you can just see the incredible size. So what they do is they grind the ore and concentrate it out.
They need a good plumber.
Where could we find one?
I don't know any.
And this is the basement where they're flushing the tailings out to the tailing ponds. So I then took the train. They run a 415-kilometer private railway that joins their plant with that private port on Port Cartier. And the gentleman was my English-speaking guide on the trip. He started on the trains when he was 10 years old. The woman next to him is the engineer. And she has to be capable of effecting all sorts of standard repairs along the length of this mile-long train that's operating often in, minus 30 degree type temperatures. So you see bulk iron ore on the right and the concentrate on the left. The bulk is coming from another mine nearby. Another view. Yeah, so we were up at 3 in the morning so that he could time it so that I'd be able to get through this canyon in daylight. He was very kind to do so because it gets dark there about 3:30 in the afternoon. And then I spent that day on the tugboats. So that's the view from below, what it looks like. There we are preparing for a pilot to get off the ship. It's never easy for them. Yeah, another view of that tiny harbor. This is a reclaimer. Its job is to move iron ore, 8,000 tons an hour. It's 11 stories tall and about a football field in length. This is the pellet plant. It's a little hard to see here, where they make the specialized iron ore pellets that are done to different manufacturer specifications. They have different recipes that they do.
Is this near Setia?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's closer to Wabat. Well, no, Port Cartier, the pellet plant, is near Setia.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I then hopped on the ship and came back to Dofasco, and here it is unloading. This is a now retired Coke battery, but it's interesting because the steel companies are actually making more money out of the derivatives from steel production. So from the manufacturing of coke, we get acetylene and coal tar. And both those commodities are making more money for them than the steel they're producing. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Cement is another big commodity that's coming through the lakes. This is the Stephen B. Roman coming into Picton. So Stephen B. Roman I knew was going to be soon retired. It was modified to accept cement, and there's a large amount of infrastructure. She was very interesting ship in that she's the fastest ship on the she was the fastest ship on the Great Lakes with a cruising speed of 18 knots. And this is the quarry in Picton, Shannonville, to be exact. Ship's captain, we're waiting for a weather window in Toronto. We need to time it so we can do the corner at the Eastern Gap. This is the chief engineer. He really wanted to take over his uncle's fishing tug company, which they sold out from under him, so now he makes models. This is the engine room, which is immaculate. Some of the crew. So that's what she looks like coming through. You can see the conveyor belts, which float the cement on conveyors. And we're heading into the Cherry Street Bridge. Unloading. And so that's the glue of our city. All of this cement is used for all of that infrastructure that's all around us. And so, you know, I like this image because it really demonstrates that. Here's a surveyor in the winter.
Yeah, she's not fine. She's not trying to.
So this is a ship that I'm now aboard that's got a load of ilmenite. And ilmenite is the primary ore used in the production of titanium. And of course, titanium is used for so many things, from cosmetics to your dental implants, to your jewelry. And the world's largest deposit of ilmenite is actually on the north shore of Quebec at Le Havre Saint Pierre. This is the ship's pilot. He's climbing down off the vessel. It's one of the most dangerous things that they do, actually, when they're not worrying about the actual navigation. It can be very challenging. So that's a view of Le Havre Saint Pierre, and that's the town's lifeblood flowing into the hold of the ship. And of course, another night departure. This otherworldly view is lit by the halogen lights. Ship's captain helping out on deck. Doesn't happen. First time I've ever seen that. Doing the wires at the dock. First mate. And ice. This trip was one of those trips where I'm frustrated because I'm waiting for the weather. It's been beautiful and warm and lovely, and I'm moaning and groaning. And then we hit the Saguenay River. And when the wind blows from the right direction, coming down from the Saguenay, there's no escaping the spray. And that's what happens. 18 inches thick ice. And the poor fellow contemplating.
And you like this?
Oh, it's fantastic. But of course, I'm not hacking away at it.
Neither is he.
So the torches come out because of course they've got to get that ice off of the hatch, the hydraulics for the hatches. Engine room conversations. And sea smoke. So again, another early morning arrival, and the deckhand heading out to ready the lines. Tugboats pushing us in. This is, now, these are out of order, I apologize. We are now in Godrich, and Godrich is salt, right? It's the world's largest salt mine.
I never knew that.
I'm told that it extends, that the vein extends down under Lake Erie almost all the way to Cleveland. Feel it, right? And there's Greg. So I'm out with Greg on the tugboat clearing ice. He's teaching an old tugboat captain how to work this new, the Boy Schneider tugboat drive system for clearing ice. That's the windrow, and we need to free the Enterprise. So Greg's busy creating ponds, move to flush the ice out. Feel free to jump in if you want to say anything. So shipping on the upper lakes will continue as long as possible, as long as there's enough open water to allow them to. In my travels, I recognized that really there had only been 2 instances where there was another woman aboard the ships. And each time they were actually a cook. And not even the lead cook, the cook's assistant. So what I've done is I've gotten out now, I'm shooting women seafarers. This is Kelsey. Kelsey's 24 years old. She's sitting here on her uncle's lobster boat, but she was Greg's chief engineer on the tugboat that they took up to service the sea lift in Baker Lake, Nunavut, just this past summer. Newly minted first mate, Margarita, on tankers. But I think she's working as a 3rd mate right now. This is Raven, 4th engineer on bulkers. And these women, unlike a lot of the offshore ships, these women on the bulkers are often working 3 months at a stretch without leave. So they're the only women aboard for 3 months at a time. And she loves her job. Her biggest frustration is actually, as a young woman wanting to be independent, the fact that the internet is so slow that she can't even do her own internet banking. So she has to ask her parents. We now have a father and daughter longshoremen's union in Hamilton. And who's that? So, of course, Judith does very important work with the Mission for Seafarers, and she's a seafarer. So there she is, ogling Yvonne's family. Rhonda, another one of the team in Hamilton. This is Cindy. She's the chief engineer on a tanker. And her biggest frustration is the fact that she feels she's kind of lost a bit of her life. That she's away so much, that she hasn't had as full a life as she would have liked to have had. Relative size. A Laker versus not a Laker. This is Quebec City, St. Foy, and this is salt. And I'm, again, very interested by the juxtaposition of industry. Apparently Quebec City is also beginning to get antsy around heavy industry being at its doorstep. Other infrastructure around Quebec City. Hanging out. I had to inhale a lot of cigarette smoke for this event. Oh my goodness. And not only that, I had to practice a lot of my Newfie. All those stickers on the map are all the towns where the crew came from. They were all Newfoundlanders, and when they got going, oh my goodness, it was hard. But that's where the socializing happens. And this, of course, is their high-tech way of keeping everything in place. The engine on the Alba Scotia was quite phenomenally clean. Never seen anything like it. Cadets at work. Organization amazing. My C-3PO shot, if you notice that. You get the humor there. That's the dirtiest thing down there. So we get cadets working on the ships, and this is the second mate running through the courses. Just faces of the crew. These are our roughy-tufty sailors. I'm always asked, what's it like to be aboard with these folks? And aren't I afraid I'm the only woman? And I'm like, well, you know, what do you think they think about? They think about their kids' educations and how to marinate moose and where to get the best coffee. This is Cornerbrook. I was all excited I was going to get to Newfoundland. I was looking for a blow. It was piss on a plate. The entire country was red on the map. And nothing. This is gypsum. Gypsum being loaded at Little Narrows, Cape Breton, Bredor Lakes now closed. Turning a shipment of low.
Have you learned to swear?
Who swears aboard? No more than anybody else, you know? Yeah, this idea that sailors are like this big, you know, they're just like anybody else. This is a blizzard. The work goes on as long as they can. They've got to get the ice off of the ship because of ice's weight.
Oh, it's slippery.
Yeah. Yeah. So all those bright, beautiful commercial pictures you see from the shipping companies, this is what they don't show you. And that's how much of the year?
Yeah.
A good part of it.
Have you heard about the Edmund Fitzgerald?
Yeah, except that they're all busy hiding. See smoke in the St. Lawrence. So this is an interesting view of the river in the ship. They are preparing to get a pilot aboard and need to make sure that they can lower the gangway. Port of Montreal. And this is St. Mary's Cement, where we're offloading gypsum. So this is Lillian Kluka. Lillian Kluka is the first female ship captain and ship's pilot on the Great Lakes, and this is the way she views sailing. So in closing, I just want to leave you with the thought that when we're reflecting about our shorelines and the things that sustain us on a daily basis, what do we want to do? Do we want to build more rivers of asphalt or use the natural waterway that we have right now?
Do we have any questions or comments?
Fascinating.
Did you ever think of doing a summer cruise?
Summary pictures are boring.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
You know, they're a dime a dozen.
Right.
What I'm trying to show is what we don't see.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are great shots.
Yeah.
I loved your comment about inhaling cigarette smoke. I think ships are the only places left where there's an enclosed place where you're allowed to smoke.
Well, it's the only place you can.
It's the
Well,
only place
on the
you can.
tanker,
But
on the
big
tank,
sign says no smoking
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
wheelhouse. you
but
know.
on tankers, I can't even take a photograph on the ship's deck on a tanker because they're so concerned about sparks. Yeah.
So smoking is interior only.
Interior only.
Yeah.
Wow. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Ron?
Did you get up much into the upper lakes?
Oh, yes.
So there's really sort of two systems, aren't there? Separated by the Welland Canal? Like the smaller ships, or the larger ships in the Upper Lakes can't come down.
Yes, that's true. And they are talking about containerization at a lot of the Upper Lakes ports, which will make it more so. But we do get salties, the smaller salties coming up. Yeah.
And then the iron ore that you were showing going into Hamilton is coming up the St. Lawrence, but there's another route of iron ore that goes from Duluth down into...
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I'm dying to get to Duluth on a ship. It just hasn't happened yet. Just because I want to doesn't mean it happens.
So do you just make cold calls and say, I'm a photographer, I'm doing this project, I want to board your ship?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, and it's a heavy industrial workplace, and it's getting harder all the time. And heavy industry, part of the reason why I want to do this work is I think it's really important that we understand what the infrastructure is behind what we are using and taking for granted. And as heavy industry becomes more and more cagey, these processes become more and more hidden. And I think it's doing them an injustice as well as ourselves, because I think we need to strike a balance. I'm not a shill for the shipping industry by any means, but I am interested very much in urban planning, sustainable transportation, labor. This is an incredibly lucrative career, and yet most people don't know anything about it. If you have daughters or sons who are looking for a job, doing something interesting and making a lot of money and having time off, this is an industry for sure for you.
What are the pay scales then?
Well, I can't talk specifically about that because they're all different unions and the companies all have, but that, so the woman who's a first mate, just got her ticket as a first mate, who's working as a third. Her husband's a newly minted captain. She's on the ships working as a third mate. Together their combined income is probably about $200,000. And they get almost half of their year off.
Better than a university professor.
For sure.
Almost.
Is there a union that covers all of Ontario?
There's
Five.
yeah, there's many different unions.
They're different.
Yeah, and depending on what your trade is, whether you're an engineer, navigation, etc.
Any other comments or questions? Paul?
Not to. I found this very, very interesting because I'm very interested in people who want to work. And I think this is terrific what you've done. But I had a very interesting day yesterday, nothing to do with this. I left Key Largo, Florida, 85 degrees and sun shining, and got here just in time for David E. Howard's 101st birthday.
Oh, wow.
And you can't believe how sharp he is.
I can.
It was a very interesting day, and David E. Howard is a wonderful man. I just wanted to tell you.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul.
It was his 101st birthday yesterday. He's the oldest living Olympian in Canada.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
Pardon? No.
Anywhere in the world.
I don't know anywhere in the world, there must be, but he's the one.
Thank you, everybody, for your, one more comment, Jim?
One of the underlying stories is the resources on our planet that the shipping caters to, and that's an additional area that you might want to investigate, document.
I mean, there really is so much. Your sharing of this story is wonderful. It was for me incredibly interesting to know what the infrastructure is behind what we take for granted every day. You are in line with Ed Bertinsky, who's done those amazing photographs of mining around the world, in addition to what cities look like and how we as humans are affecting our planet. And I agree with you that if we can have more of the waterways used as opposed to the highways, we will be contributing to reducing our carbon footprint.
Diane,
So,
just
oh yes,
before you
Bob.
go, if you up on Lake Huron or the upper lakes, the stream of ships, they're about 3 miles apart, I think, all the way as far as you can see. It's really quite something.
Well, just your map at the beginning, the screenshot.
But when you're
When
out
you're
there,
there, you see it.
you're trying to cross it, you have to be careful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They move a lot faster. They
Oh,
move a
yes.
lot faster
Than you think they're going to, yes. I remember crossing Lake Ontario at night and
Yes,
just one.
yes.
We've got to watch that. So, Vicki, thank you so much for being here and presenting this today. We have a little token of appreciation.
Thank you.
So that you'll remember us and come back sometime. And perhaps when you've got that next round of photos, we can consider inviting you again. And next week and the week after, we have Martha Henderson. The first week, she's going to be talking about her Olympic experiences. And the second week, she's bringing members of her board from the Disabled Sailing Association to talk to us about their current activities and the influence that they have in the area. So with that, lights out.